Always great having my next guest on the program. It's GM3 Gerald Meerschaert, who will be back in action at UFC Vegas 88, March the 16th, when he takes on Bryan Barberena. Gerald, how are you?
Ryan, I'm great. Good to see you again.
Nice to see you. And I first want to start with that mustache. That is an impressive mustache. I wish I could grow something like that, but I can't. Is it going to stay for fight night? Will you keep that until the 16th of March?
Yeah. For fight night, I'll be riding in there with the old stash, and after that, we'll see what happens.
All right. So you might not keep it come summertime. It's pretty thick. I mean, like if you let your beard grow, is it a problem? Do you just get too hot?
I mean, it can be. I'm in Florida now, man. Sometimes it gets a little hot down here, especially in the summer. So the mustache is definitely a little bit more manageable.
Fair enough, man. Last time we saw you in action, obviously the fight with Andre Petrosky, I really thought that you could have won that fight. I thought maybe if you pushed a little bit more in that third, you could have got him out of there. Is that the consensus you and your team thought as well?
Yeah, I mean, there's always woulda, coulda, shoulda with everything. The biggest thing that I got to take away from that, and I've known this before, but it kind of reinforces it, is that for better or worse, our sport doesn't really score defense. You know what I mean? So it doesn't matter, like, especially in the first round, we both landed some shots, but I made him miss a lot. But like making someone miss doesn't necessarily help your case unless you make him whiff, really bad, maybe. But like rolling with punches and making somebody miss by a little bit, especially if you don't counter back, doesn't really count for much. It's more about, and even in the rules, it says that it's about aggression, it's about strikes landed, it's about controlling the octagon. So just because you're not getting hit doesn't mean that you can take your foot off the gas offensively. And like, like you said, just a little bit more here, a little bit more there. Obviously I did what I felt was right at the time. And, he caught me with a good shot in the second. I feel like if the fight kept going the way it was going, I was, on a way to for sure at least a decision win, if not finding something. But, it's a fight. Shit happens.
Yeah. I mean, we know how he's a tough, durable, well-rounded fighter. Was there anything that maybe surprised you in the fight that you didn't anticipate from him?
Uh, I wouldn't say there's anything that necessarily surprised me. He had a really unique and good single leg finish that like I hadn't really like felt before in a fight. So my normal defense kind of like played into what he was trying to do, and that like made the takedown a little bit easier than maybe it should have been. But other than that, he did a good job. He stayed pretty disciplined on the feet, and obviously he landed one good shot. And then towards the end, I started getting a hold of him a little bit more, and he did the right thing, making space when he needed to and stuff like that. So hats off to him.
It was a split decision loss. Did you still feel like maybe you did enough to have the judges, go your way?
Yeah, at the time I thought I got the first and the third, but it wasn't like it can't be surprised going either way, right? Unless you really dominate somebody, you shouldn't expect to get a decision. You know what I'm saying? So, uh, like I still feel like if I would have got the call, it would have been the right call, but I'm not complaining about the call that happened either because obviously there's more I could have done. Um, it's like something like that. That's where I think like open scoring would be nice because it's like I kind of thought I had the first round and I knew I was down the second round and I really tried to push the pace the third round. But, if I knew I was down the first two on a couple of judges' scorecards, I was going to try to push it the third round anyway, but, it might be a little bit different knowing that I need a finish. You know what I'm saying? But that's a whole other thing. But yeah, like I said, I heard from a lot of people like, yeah, it was close. It was either, of course, my friends are going to be like edge towards me or it was a toss up. So it's like, you can't really be mad about it. You just got to do better next time.
When you're just around the guys, right, and you're just talking about fights and judging decisions and all of that, how much do fighters complain and are upset about judging decisions? Because it just seems to keep happening. Every event, there's a decision that doesn't sit right with the public.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's ever not going to happen. You know what I'm saying? And it is subjective. It's like because you could say like, oh well, we should just base it off who lands more significant strikes. well, we don't even have a consensus on what a significant strike is. Like if you look at the stats uh of any given fight, like I've been in fights where I see the significant strikes and they'll be like, "Oh, I landed 21 of 40 or something like that." And then I'll go back and watch that round. And of course, I had the advantage of knowing what actually landed, right? But like I'll go back and watch around and be like, well, he landed five good shots and I landed seven. Like, where are you getting 20 something? You know what I'm saying? And so, like, first there's that. And then it's like, as much as we try to put points to it, it is subjective. And even in the judging, I've seen judges, and that's not that it's wrong, but they could argue one way or the other. Is like, it used to be if you got takedown and ground control or fence control, even if you got outstruck a little bit, you were going to win. And now they're like, well, if a guy's on his back and he's more aggressive, like if you just sit there in his guard and hold him, but the guy on his back is working, he's elbowing you, he's throwing up submissions, then the guy on the ground wins, which I don't disagree with. But then you still see fights where like maybe a guy's held a guy down for, you know, 80% of the fight, but didn't actually do anything other than hold him down. But then the other 20% of the fight, the guy, when he was on the feet, he was like really beating him up, and I've seen it go either way.
Yeah.
And there's no clear consensus. It's just like, well, that guy should get it because he was in control more. Well, the other guy should get it because the other guy, he was just trying to avoid getting beat up. And like when it was actually a fight, he was winning. So it's like there's just a lot as far as like we got to come to a consensus first on what exactly the rules are. And I think that's somewhat impossible because again, it's subjective. And I think like a lot of people call for, I think open scoring would be nice. And I think more judges would be nice, like five judges instead of three.
I agree. And I also feel like former fighters, that should be a job for a lot of you guys that want to do that. And I think it'd have to be very specific where you guys wouldn't be able to judge someone you have a relationship with, someone that like you wouldn't be able to judge Brendan Allen's fight. Like, is it just,
Right.
your heart would
Right.
lean towards him. So I think that would make a lot of sense. Do you agree?
Yeah, it's gonna be it's gonna be hard to find guys like that because like it's kind of a small community, so a lot of guys are gonna know each other. But I wouldn't be opposed to that. I still think anybody who does it should have to go through some kind of you know course. So we're like, these are the rules. Like no matter what you think, because like as fighters, we're like, well, we know what to look for in a fight inherently, right? But just as far as scoring criteria goes, is like this is what we mean exactly by this. This is what we're looking for. And no matter how you feel about it, this is the order that we're judging things in. Like, this is the highest one. This is the next one. Like, you know, if aggression's at the top of the list, or like they always use effective striking. Okay, well, first define effective and what does that mean? And then if that's equal, then this is the next one, and so on and so forth. Like,
Yeah.
that should still be mandatory. But yeah, more judges would help. Former fighters would help. Guys that have been in there, like in actual MMA, because we have a lot of judges right now, and it's no knock against them. They've done combat sports before, but it was from a different time, and it's not really the same thing as what we're watching today.
Yeah, for sure. Completely agree with all that. What was it like fighting in Boston? You're up here in my neck of the woods. How did you like the venue and the fans?
It was fun, man. I got nothing bad to say. I've cornered in that venue before. It was fun to get out there and fight. It's a big city. It's like a lot of things that like the Garden is a famous venue. It was cool to just be in there and be under those lights, and the crowd was awesome. I thought. There's a couple stagnant points. Maybe they booed a little bit, but by the end they were all on their feet going nuts, and that's all you can ask for.
Did you get a chance to go out and have an adult beverage or get some good food post fight?
Yeah, we were right by like a little Chinatown area and we got some food. So that was pretty cool. And they like recognized me, which I thought was like that was cool because I definitely did not expect that because I think, there's maybe like one guy there that spoke English. So when we walked in, I was like, okay, this food's gonna be awesome. And then they couldn't really ask me like if it was me, but they just walked out with like their phone in the picture and they were like, "Is that you?" I was like, "Yeah." Like because I didn't have any like marks on my face or anything. So that was pretty fun.
Yeah, Boston's a big fight town. It's not surprising
Oh
they'd
yeah,
recognize you for sure.
yeah. It was a good time though. Yeah, good atmosphere. Plenty of stuff to see. Walk around the city. Like lots of the parks were really nice. Obviously the skyscrapers. It was fun.
Yeah, very cool. I know, you signed a longer contract here, this most recent contract you have with the UFC, but this last fight with Petrosky, that was a while ago now. Are you wanting to like spread out your fights and just make sure you get full camps and now at this stage of your career, or are you hoping to maybe, fight, sooner rather than you're fighting this time?
I would have liked to have fought sooner. Actually, this particular time it ended up working out okay because I just got some random sicknesses in there that like kind of took me out for a week or two here and there. So it ended up being fine. But I 3 fights a year is like still a goal I would like to keep because I don't cut a ton of weight. I'm not the, I'm not. I definitely couldn't make 70, but I'm not a huge middleweight either. So fighting 3 times a year, I think, is very doable.
Obviously, still at Kill Cliff, one of the best gyms on planet Earth. Are you just getting more and more comfortable there and enjoying Florida?
Yeah, no, I love the guys there. The coaching staff is great. Um, it's been great. I've been able to give back a little bit and like teach a little bit of grappling there as well, which has been really nice. And the gym has been doing really well. We've had a lot of big years last year and like big fights coming up, and with that many guys in like the PFL Bellator conglomerate now, and like all the UFC guys, I got Anj is on the same card as me, March 16th. So got a bunch of guys on the Miami card, or at least for sure Gilbert. I thought there was, yeah, Gilbert and Asu were both on the Miami card this week. And then, there's guys the week after me. We got guys in Atlantic City. It's busy, it's buzzing right now, and it's good to have everybody's energy like going in that same direction.
Yeah, no doubt. You mentioned Anj. I just interviewed Brian Battle. What do you see in that fight? An interesting welterweight bout.
Yeah, Brian Battle's tough. He's lanky for 170, and he's pretty good with his shot selection and being tricky. Um, Anj, I think, would be able to wrestle him up a little bit, and I think he'll surprise a lot of people with his hands. Like, I know we saw him in the one fight with was it Fletcher? Like they both got gassed a little bit, but he's looked great since then. I know his cardio is going to be great for this fight, and that dude, I can tell you, he hits really, really hard. Like even if you block one of his punches, it's like it's gonna move your whole body. So I'm excited for that one.
Yeah, no doubt. You mentioned Gilbert Burns. He's taking on Jack Della Maddalena. Big fight right there as well. I like both of those guys. I don't want either one of them to lose, but I guess someone has to get their hand raised. When you look at it stylistically, Gilbert's a bad matchup for a lot of people. What do you think though with JDM? He's a young guy. We know how good he is on the hands, but he's also had some tough fights in the UFC his last couple times out.
Yeah, it's definitely a step up in competition, and I don't think Gilbert's slowing down anytime soon. And anytime you get a guy, I could see the argument that Madalena's like got the cleaner technique on the feet or whatever, maybe throws more numbers. But when you got a guy like Gilbert who's got good wrestling, he's got great jujitsu, and he's got power in his hands, and he's not afraid to swing them things, like especially with little gloves on, that's a dangerous matchup for anybody, and especially against a guy who's not gonna really look for the takedown at all. I mean, if he decides to shoot, then like if I was Gilbert, to be like, fine, take me down now. You know what I mean? Like now you're in my world, and that's a bad option. So he's got to worry about getting cracked and getting taken down. And that kind of limits his options, and I think that puts it very heavily in Gilbert's favor.
Yeah, can't wait to watch that fight. It's very interesting from a stylistic standpoint. I also got to ask you about your guy, Brendan Allen. Big fight for him, Marvin Vettori. I think this has to be the toughest fight, he's had so far, right? I mean, each time he goes in there, he gets a win. He's going to get someone higher up in the rankings. And now here we got Vettori. What do you think of this fight? Like, what do you imagine we're going to see here if you just look at it objectively?
I would say that Brendan's gonna have the speed advantage and he's gonna have a reach advantage. He's gonna be able to pick them apart on the outside. I think Marvin's gonna try and like charge him. Um, I could see him in the earlier rounds being difficult to take down. So it's probably gonna wait till the later rounds, like if he gets a takedown. But I haven't seen anything from Vittori that would suggest he's gonna like evade a lot of shots. And I think that's just gonna work in Brendan's favor because he can stick and move really well. They both got power. Vittori's notoriously tough and hard to put away, but I've never seen a problem with Brendan's cardio, and it's not like Vittori's a cardio bunny either. So if I'm safe bet is Brendan by decision. but I wouldn't be surprised if he catches him with something or catches him slipping and gets him to the floor. And if he gets him to the floor, uh, if he makes a mistake, he's getting submitted. If he doesn't, he's not getting up.
And this is main event fight. So this is a 5 round fight. Um,
Right.
that's a lot of time in there for both of these guys. We know how dangerous Brendan is. If he does finish Vittori and he gets him out of there, what kind of a statement does that make to the top of the division?
I mean, it's something that I don't think anyone's been able to do that yet, and I think that puts him right in there for a title shot. You know what I mean? If it doesn't give him, if he gets that done in dramatic fashion, I'd say call for the title shot. But even after the win, if not title shot, at least number one contender spot. One of the two.
Yeah, I could see that happening. Let's talk about the top of the division, shall we? Dricus is the champ. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen next. It seems like maybe Izzy. Who knows what the UFC is going to do? But what would you like to see? What do you think makes the most sense for Dricus's first title defense?
I could see them giving it to Izzy. That would probably be one of the bigger, bigger draws, I would think. Um, a rematch with Strickland wouldn't be out of the question, but I like everything that I've seen suggest that it would be Izzy next, and then Izzy could call for you could have the Sean Izzy rematch if you wanted to, or Dricus and Sean fight again for 3 rounds, so you have all those. But the top, I was just talking about this with somebody else the other day, but like the top of the 85 divisions, like everyone's kind of fought everybody,
Mm,
so it's great that Brendan's going to be up there now, but like because Drake has fought Whitaker. Drake, he just fought Sean. Who's left? Like, if Dricus wins, it's like, has he fought Cannonier yet? Like, maybe that's one. But Cannonier's fought everybody in the top of the division. Hermanson's fought most guys at the top of the division. There's not much movement going on there right now. And Whitaker just beat Costa, you know what I'm saying? So it's like Costa's not really up. He is coming off a loss. You can't really put him anywhere near a title shot. So yeah, it's kind of all bogged up right now. So they're gonna have to like move some things around. But like I said, I think ticket sales wise, Izzy DDP probably does numbers pretty well, and then
mm.
hopefully Brendan can get up there and mix stuff up a little bit.
I'd love to see Whitaker and Strickland fight next. If that happens, how do you see that fight shaking out?
I don't know. That'd be an interesting fight. I feel like Whitaker would have, well, obviously there's a big speed advantage, but I think he'd be able to win that fight just based off of like Sean's good at walking people down, but it'd be really hard to walk Whitaker down because he's just like so bouncy all the time. You
Mm.
know what I mean? Like Costa couldn't do it. You know what I mean? And like Costa's just as big as Strickland. Well, he's bigger than Strickland, but reach wise, they're pretty similar, I feel like. So, but I'm sure that's a fight people would tune in for.
Yeah, no doubt. One last thing I wanted to get your take on, Shemaev, guy you know pretty well. He's rumored to be one of those guys that is going to be fighting one of the big dogs at the top of the division. How do you think he's going to fare against like the top two, three, four guys at 185?
Honestly, I have no idea. I fought him a while ago and, not no fault of anybody's. It was just circumstances. I wasn't like definitely not my best self. That being said, I still thought I could win, so I took the fight. So like none of that matters. But I'm just saying, like, I don't even if I was in good shape and it went the way it went, I don't have a good barometer of how he'll do because like he just touched me once. You know what I'm saying? Like I didn't get to lock up with him. I didn't really get to move around that much and like feel it out. So I have no idea, honestly. But I think the wrestling is going to be he's going to have a speed advantage, I feel like for sure. But it's going to be harder to take those big guys down. And if you don't get that takedown against those big dudes and you get tired, it's going to be really, really dangerous. Because he's got power, obviously, but I think a lot of that power comes from being fresh and having a good
Mhm.
pop. And it's kind of hard to keep that when you've expended a lot of energy wrestling. So it's going to be interesting to see if he changes his approach at all. That being said, you hear all the stories about like him beating up 205ers and stuff like that in the gym. So like we'll see if that's true, but you know, I don't think it's going to be like how he had his initial rise. Um, and like he was in there with Gilbert and Kamaru and had very difficult fights. That being said, the difference there between 70 and 85, like obviously there's a size difference, but if you can hang with top dogs at either of those weight classes, I think you're fine in the other. We'll just have to see if like the weight has that big of an effect on him.
It's going to be interesting. A lot of great fights to be made at 185. Let's transition to your fight with Bryan Barberena, March 16th, UFC Vegas 88. I believe you're 3-2 at the Apex, if I'm not mistaken. Are you excited to be back there? Like, do you like fighting at the Apex?
I would prefer a crowd, but you know what, man? I'm getting paid the same. You know what I mean? Once they lock the doors on the cage, it's not much is different. And it is nice, like having the PI there. Vegas, no matter what, has everything you need. And as long as I'm fighting for the UFC, it doesn't really matter if it's at a big arena or the Apex. Big arenas are fun,
Mhm.
but Apex is nice too because then there's a lot of extra, you don't have to do the ceremonial weigh-ins or all that other stuff. So I can just weigh in and like, go about my business. So that's fine too.
Yeah, a little bit easier. You don't have as many obligations and stuff you've got to deal
Right,
with.
right, right.
This is an important fight for both of you guys, right? But Barberena, he's lost three in a row. Do you feel like he's fighting for his job here? Like, if he doesn't beat you, like maybe the UFC is going to let him go.
I'm sure he feels that way. You know what I mean? I think we're both probably a little more on his side, but I think both very fan friendly. And I think, the only reason we've been around this long is we got a decent following and people, no matter what our records are, people know we come to fight. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's a big selling point. Obviously, two clashing styles that would suggest that I have a big advantage. But yeah, I'm expecting him to be at his best. I'm expecting him to fight like his job's on the line. I'm, not thinking about it this way, but I'm fighting like my job's on the line too, because like, down two, I'm, never lost more than I've lost two in a row in the UFC before, but I've never lost three in a row, and I'm going to keep it that way. But that being said, he's very tough, he's very durable, and that's kind of how he made his mark is turning everything into a bar fight, for lack of a better term. And that's, I know he's going to bring it, I'm going to bring it, and we're going to mix it up and see what happens.
I love the analogy. And you mentioned Clash of Styles. He's been submitted twice in his last three fights.
Right.
RDA, Gunnar Nelson both submitted him. You're pretty good on the ground. Like it seems tailor made where this should be maybe a win for you on the ground. Is that how you see it? Like, do you anticipate getting him on the ground and subbing him?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think anybody, I don't think there's any confusion as to what my easiest path to victory is. Now, I will give him credit. The guy has very good, he's very good about when you take him down, unless you get his back flat and really stick him to the mat. He's immediately getting up. He's getting his head up. He's getting height. He's working towards the wall. He's doing everything and he's not stopping moving. He's looking for wrist control and he's getting up off that mat. He is very good at doing that. And even when we saw like his fight with Muradov, and Muradov, he out wrestled him and took him down a bunch, but it was hard for him to hold him down even at 85. Now, Muradov's not really, at the level of grappling that I am, but he still did a good job there. And he's very stubborn on the fence with his takedown defense. So you really got to make sure you lock it in correctly, right? And get to your position. And then once you get him down, you got to hold him down first and then work for your submission. So, and not to mention, he's not afraid to fight. You know what I mean? Like he's not just going to sit there and be afraid and like wait for me to shoot. In the meantime, he's going to try and take my head off.
Mhm. If he does do a good job of turning this into a bar fight, like you say, is that a bad thing for you? Do you want to get in there and trade with him? Is that obviously not what you want to do, or would you welcome that?
Oh, I mean, I wouldn't mind. I don't know if you see my fights, Ryan, but I get a little busy myself, Like everybody sees the record and they're like, "Oh, all these submissions." You can go back and watch the footage. Most of my submissions come off putting hands on people. Like I'm not out here getting a clean takedown, passing the guard systematically and strangling someone. I'm throwing hands, I'm smacking dudes up first, and then I'm getting them down, beating them a little bit more, and then when they decide they've had enough, they either do something stupid or I, throw that choke in, and that's all she wrote.
Ultimately, what's your prediction? How does this fight end?
I'll say round one submission.
Okay, early one, early night. That's what you get in and get
Yeah,
out and take no damage.
that's right.
Awesome. And you talked a little bit earlier about, wanting to fight every, 3, 4 months or so. Uh, June time, July, like what would be like the perfect time frame for your next one, if as long as you're healthy?
Yeah, as long as I'm healthy, I wouldn't be opposed to July. Hopefully at least August. I got a wedding I got to be at in September, so hopefully I can like fight a little bit before that, so I'm like not in the middle of a camp or something. But yeah, July or August would be perfect.
Awesome. Well, Gerald, always good talking to you. It's always fun watching you compete as well. March the 16th, UFC Vegas 88 GM3 is back in action. Before we do sign off, I want to give you the floor as always. Anything you want to plug, anything you want to thank? Floor's yours.
Hey, appreciate my teammates, everybody at Kill Cliff, Sucker Punch, Combat Corner, all my sponsors, Rattlesnake. You guys are awesome.